This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
It is 5:30, so I think we're going to get started. Councillor Conniff would like you to just remember to sign your name, just so that we have everyone's spellings for the minutes. But welcome everybody to the City Council Finance Committee meeting. It's August 13th, 5:30. You're all present.
Yeah.
So, let's see. When we have some minutes for the last few meetings. Remind me which.
May 28th, June 11th, and July 14th.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the aforementioned meetings.
Second.
Okay, motion a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes. Minutes are approved. Mayor's communication. Mayor, anything that's not on the agenda that you'd like to?
There's not a ton more from what I gave at the mayor's update at our last meeting.
Okay.
I would just say that we are continuing to work on the health insurance issue. It was discussed at the school committee meeting last night. It is a pretty significant, important issue for us. So we're trying to figure out how we can prepare for the next steps.
Okay, let us know how we can help.
Okay, thank you.
Public speak. Is there anyone here to speak about any topic that's not on our agenda? I didn't think so. Okay, so we're going to go into new business. What I think I'm going to do is I'd like to cover the CPA appropriations first, because I think we can, they're, in my personal opinion, extremely uncontroversial. We should be able to get them done quickly, and then our CPA coordinator and our community members can not stick around for everything that we're going to do after that. So does anyone object to that sort of order?
It's a great plan. Love it.
Great.
Second.
All right. So the first, so these were all CPA items that the CPA committee recently approved. They were all approved unanimously, and I think all of them had some pretty wide community support as well. The first one is an appropriation of $264,500 to renovate and improve the Nautic spray park. I'll just say I'll let Ava summarize it, but I'll say the part that I found the most exciting about this project is that it's going to include a system to basically reuse a lot of the water that gets sprayed out, that it'll be recaptured and then in a sanitary way reused again. So while this project is going to cost us CPA money, it'll actually potentially save the city a lot of money in the long run in water bills, because just the amount of water that gets wasted by the current system is actually pretty substantial. So if you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, so this grant is to match the currently applied for Land, Water, and Conservation Fund grant that John has also applied for, John Mason, Parks Director, who sends his regrets. And what he's communicated is that that grant application has made it through the state process and has now been recommended for federal funding. So it's made it through the first round of discussions, and I believe he'll know that in the late fall if it is funded at the federal level via that grant application. Some other things he noted: the spray park project involves reusing some of the current features on site, which is great. It's not starting from scratch, throwing out the water features that are currently functioning, but it does involve a resurfacing of it to make it safer. It's a great project. It's the spray park is a city designated cooling location, and it remains open during extreme heat hours, prolonged essentially to cover all of the daylight hours. So it's both a recreation project and a climate sustainability project, both with the water reuse and with the cooling location.
And John did write to me today to just let me know, just as a heads up for the finance committee and the city council, that like if we get funded for this, it's one of those types of grants that we'll need to basically appropriate funds up front to pay for the entirety of the project. And then as we spend those funds down, we'll get reimbursed for some of it. So if this goes through, don't be shocked as a finance committee if there's then a second appropriation connected to this that we have to go for in hopefully in the fall when we hopefully get it. Any questions, councilors?
No. So the federal government, I don't think I don't have to say anything more than that.
Yeah.
So if that money doesn't come through that grant, then this.
That's the case at this
That's
time.
right.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. I would entertain a motion to recommend this appropriation to the full council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is a $250,000 appropriation to design and construct the Easthampton skate park / all wheels park. You want to present this?
Yeah, certainly. So this is the 250,000 is the city's share of the project. This project was also approved unanimously by the CPA committee.
I think all of them were.
All of them were, yeah. And this is designed to match a park grant, which the skate park committee has applied for with support of John Mason. That park grant was previously priced at 500,000, and this last year was reduced to 425,000. And thus this appropriation was raised to 250,000 to match the full 750,000, along with $75,000 of fundraising proposed by the skate park committee to match. And this is for both the design and the construction of a approximately 6,000 square foot skate park, for which we have preliminary designs or preliminary images, but not a full design yet.
Can you tell me again, what was the amount that you had originally been told and now it's been reduced? What was that original?
So it was the original ask was for 175,000.
Okay.
And then prior to the vote, the amount was raised to 250,000
Okay.
to cover the $75,000 reduction in the park grant. Which I believe it was the first time in many years that the park grant amount had been reduced.
Councilors, any questions on this one?
No.
I'll just quickly say that this project has been going on since, like, I think since I was running for the school committee 8 years ago. So it's great to see us moving forward on this. And I just think it's very exciting.
Yeah, no question, but comment, like, just want to commend the skate park committee, and yourself and the planning department. Like, I think that you didn't give up. And I think there was a lot of roadblocks. And I think that at the heart of this, you've continued to organize this for our young people and building alternative kind of recreational activities for the city. And so I really appreciate that you all stuck with this. And certainly I think that we have a lot of neurodivergent kids in our community. As someone who is incredibly introverted, right? I know that organized sport creates obstacles for young people to kind of engage in community, and build community and friendships and things like that. So I just, want to publicly say that I really appreciate the fact that you stuck with this.
Thank you. Great. Anything else?
Public comments at this point.
I might as well, sure.
Break rules all the time. So it may be any different.
My name is Jeff Bagg. I'm just a resident in Easthampton, and this is Eddie. Eddie's been really a champion of the project from the get-go.
The chairperson mentioned this for the spray park, and that was one of the only reasons I wanted to come tonight. Is just, I think with the same narrative that this is a reimbursement grant that the city is going after. So as soon as it's awarded, thinking positively, the city council would have the same kind of vote to authorize the full cost of the project. So the full $750,000 would come to city council. And I was just thinking that was an important message to translate out when the full city council meeting happens. But we're really happy to be involved in this project. We have a lot of families and so parents of, school-age children who have been following this 5-year process. We had a really great meeting with the CPA committee. The second meeting, we had this room full. We had a couple kids who spoke at a public meeting, which is great, real rare. And I think if I can ask a basic question of your prerogative on the public hearing, whether you would like to have a lot of public comment happening at the public hearing or people in the room to show support, because we can certainly make that happen. But I didn't know if the council had any real position on that before we move, because I think the meeting might get set for September 3rd.
Sure. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of strong political opposition just from my read on the council. So I don't know how much it's going to sway things, but if people want to come up and speak for a popular project, they're certainly encouraged to. I mean, that's local government.
Great. Thank you. Yep. And the last thing was that we've been really happy to be working with John Mason, park director, on this. It's really come together, and super excited about the idea of the park happening on Millside. It is a two-step process. So if we're awarded it, the first 6, 7, 8 months are design, and then the construction would only commence as of July of 2026. And then it would go through that summer and the fall and probably pop up in the spring of 2027 is when we expect the project to be complete.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Unless there's anything else? I would entertain a motion to recommend this appropriation to the full council.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and finally, for CPA, we have a $14,500 appropriation to pursue national and historic designations for Brookside Cemetery and the Daly Field Comfort Station.
Great. So this is a two-part project. There's Brookside Cemetery, and then there's the Comfort Station at Daly Field that are folded together into one historic designation pursuit. But they're sort of taking two different pathways, but they're one appropriation request. So Brookside Cemetery, our cemetery over here, is maintained by the Parks Department, and preliminary studies in partnership with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission have discovered that Brookside Cemetery may be of national historical significance due to its early design work by Bowditch, who went on to design famous cemeteries later on in his life, including the Mount Auburn Cemetery in Boston. And so essentially the thought is that, as far as I understand it, that this is like an early example of his work and that it's of national significance for the arc of his overall work. And so John Mason of the Parks Department is pursuing funds. I believe this amount is $11,000 to consult with PVPC, some of their historic consultants, and Martha Lyon of Martha Lyon Landscape Architecture to pursue that national historic designation. And then for the National Registry of Historic Places. And then for the lesser amount of $3,500 is the Daly Field Comfort Station, which is the stone house building on the edge of Daly Field. And so in just a little bit of the history, as far as I understand it from John, is that he initially applied for a state historic designation for the entirety of Daly Field, but the state, which included the bathroom, the state found that Daly Field had been modified too much over the course of its 100-year lifespan for it to meet the designation of a state historic place. But the Stonehouse bathroom, independently, as an example of 1930s works progress / projects, administration projects, should proceed for a state registry of historic places independently. So both of these projects are, it's important to recognize our historic places in Easthampton, and also they potentially open up different avenues for grants to further protect these spaces and keep them in use.
The conversation is not usable right now.
Is currently not usable.
Right.
Yep. And so the $3,500 would just go towards getting it ideally put on the state registry of historic places.
And is the thought that by being designated that, then we come up at some point in the future, because of that designation, we might then be able to get funds that would upgrade it and or make it usable?
Yes, or potentially convert it, keeping the historic status, but towards a different use.
Which I think is important, because I remember there was a brief talk about renovating that structure maybe 4 or 5 years ago on the council, and we saw the price tag.
It's a lot.
It was kind of, I don't know, maybe for a bathroom, but if it's historical, there might be grants available that could help us put that building back into use. So I think that's sort of the long game here, is that if we can get it recognized as historically significant, could unlock some funding sources that where I just think that out of the funds we currently have available, that might not necessarily ever be the top priority, but I think it's something a lot of people would like to see. So, Councilor Finner?
This is purely for the public, and if you could just super brief, just kind of what are the 3 areas for the CPA, and then how would this fit into that, just so if anybody's like, why are we,
Yeah, absolutely. So the 3 funding stools of the CPA are open space / recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing.
Mhm.
So despite the fact that these are parks owned projects, they're historic preservation projects because they both relate to registering these historic places.
Thank you very much.
And one other thing I'll note is that in this last fiscal year that these appropriations were part of the CPA's fiscal 25 cycle, even though they're part of the council's fiscal 26 cycle, $27,525 were returned for a previous phase of the Stonehouse bathroom design, the same one that we're discussing here. So that was a different avenue that at one point had been pursued. This was the price tag that you all saw. So the remainder of the funds that weren't used in the design process are being returned to the pot that came from the CPA.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to recommend this appropriation to the full council.
Second.
Motion a second.
Enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Good luck.
Seeing you, buddy. Thank you. Take it
Hi,
easy.
Jeff.
All right. Now that we've had the fun CPA stuff, let's talk about district improvement financing.
It's fun too.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Don't disparage it.
Not this-
Oh, it's right in front of me. Okay, so we're,
And now it's gone.
and now it's gone. So it's continuing business. There's a couple of parts to this. The first is, I think I'll switch the order of that. I think the first thing we should talk about is the district improvement finance component of this, which involves establishing an invested revenue district and an invested revenue district development program with a development program fund, all associated with the previously established Ferry Street District Improvement Financing Program.
Mhm.
And then associated with that is a request for authorization to borrow $3 million for improvements in that district. So I can, I have just like a few slides that I can put up quickly to help give an overview of what district improvement financing is and these components that we're asking about tonight. I don't know if you need to make me a
Oh, I can do that.
I gotta jump on.
Sure.
Sorry.
Co-host. Good to go.
So the purpose of a district improvement financing program is economic development. It allows the city to capture incremental increases in revenues, typically in the form of property tax. In this case, it will be pilot revenues, and invest those back into the district with the idea that this incentivizes private investment into the district. In the Ferry Street district, which again was established back in 2018, the goal was to redevelop the mill structures that had been abandoned or were underutilized and were considered a blight for the neighborhood. And since then, there has been some development that has happened and some remaining parcels to be developed. There's some statutory components of a DIF. Well, I'll just abbreviate it as a DIF moving forward. You need a development district, which we already have, but you also need an invested revenue district, a development program, and an invested revenue district development program. So the Ferry Street district is roughly shown on here in red. It, like I said, includes the mills at the corner of Ferry, Pleasant, and Lovefield, as well as some of the intersections around there. The invested revenue district is the parcels within the broader district that revenue is captured from. So in this case, it's the ones with the stars, and that is the mill properties. The ones that are included are like the pond and some of the bike path and a lot of city-owned land where we wouldn't be getting any revenue anyways. The development program describes the overall capital improvement plans for the district. That includes public and private projects. I've got a list of the projects that are expected moving forward in the district. There have been some that have already been completed. Those are included here. I think we'll touch on them again a little later. I just wanted to kind of stick to the overview of the DIF framework for the time being. The Invested Revenue District Development Program is how the captured revenues will be spent in the district. So the money that is captured has to be spent in the district. There are other means of financing projects in the district, including grant funds and private partner contributions as well. There's a list here of those public projects and how we're proposing for them to be funded. You'll notice the 11 Ferry Street demolition $3 million general obligation bond. That is the only borrowing that's requested in association with the public improvements in the district. The remainder are all expected to be grants or private partner contributions. This is a spreadsheet that if you want to spread these around, it's included in there. It shows the taxes that the city would have received if there were no development on the site and if there were no agreements in place. We'll touch on it in a second. Then it shows the value, the increase in value resulting from development on the properties. And the difference between what we would have received if nothing had happened and what we'll receive because of the development is called the increment. And the increment is what is eligible to be captured and invested back into the district. This is the scheme for how the funds are distributed once they're captured. They go into a development program fund, and then from there, they're either split up into a development fund sinking account, which covers the principal and interest on any debt that's issued. That's the priority for funds to go to. And then if there are other funds or if borrowing is not part of the plan, then it goes into a project cost account, which is sort of like a pay as you go. So if you have, 15 years into the life of the DIF, which is 25 years long total, 15 years in, say you have $1 million in there, you can pay $1 million for a project out of pocket, essentially. As I mentioned here, the plan is not to do any of that pay as you go work. It is all grant and bond funded projects. So it's like a very, very high level overview of DIF as a statutory tool for cities to use for economic development purposes. I also have a draft order of adoption that I think helps sort of illustrate what it is we're actually asking of the city council. We're specifically asking, just to backtrack, is for the invested revenue district to be designated, which is those parcels that will capture revenue from, and the invested revenue district development program, which is those public infrastructure projects that we are committing to use the funds, the revenues on. As part of that, the development program fund is created. That's part of the development program. I did include it as a separate thing, just to make it clear that that fund will be established as part of this. So there's a lot more. I don't know how to best approach what to discuss next. I don't know if you want to go over the projects in the district, the prior investments in the district. We have the property owner here who is would be the invested revenue district parcel owner.
Why don't we take a quick pause and just ask councilors, do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, well, I'm not clear on this.
Yeah.
So all these columns, what is, so is this the payback or the expected payback? If we agree to 3 million, you're coming back and saying this will ultimately be a good investment because it'll be worth more than 3 million by the time we're done.
Yes. So let me backtrack
Get
again
revenue
here.
because of that.
It's hard to sort of tie all of this in together. So in 2018, the DIF district was established. Subsequently, in 2021, the city signed a 121A agreement with the developer, which designated the property as blighted and set up an alternative payment to property taxes. So a payment in lieu of taxes, which goes directly to the city. The State Department of Revenue also collects a payment and sort of acts as a middleman and passes that back on to the city.
And all that money comes from the current owner.
That's correct. Instead of property taxes. So there's the 121A payments. Those are the ones that go to the Department of Revenue. And then there's the 6A payments, which were negotiated additional amounts that come directly to the city.
Okay.
The 6A payments are the only value that I included in the incremental revenue calculation. So yes, the 3.2 is the projected 6A payments over the life of the DIF, which is more than the borrowing request. And also does not include the 3.5 million, or I'm sorry, the 3.3 million that's expected to come from the Department of Revenue.
But that's not a guaranteed flow, it's a projected flow.
These are projected, and it's I can probably let the developer and his team speak a bit more to it, but it's based on when the buildings are actually occupied and put into use. Exactly. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So those timelines aren't set in stone. Development, there is some variability, and we've seen COVID and other things that have thrown off a lot of schedules, but there are lots of signs pointing to all systems go on things moving forward quickly once this is in place.
I have a question. When was the last time the spreadsheet was updated? This is a little old, isn't it?
This is updated, actually. So
Are these tax rates?
those are, so Sean, I don't know if you want to speak more to, or Jane, more to how the municipal tax rate per thousand values were established.
That was Jeff.
A lot of hands on this, over the years.
So,
No, not Jeff, Jeff Daly.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I can just quickly interject on that. So originally, when we went to go set this 121A up, we sat down with the assessors, okay, and Peter, and we came up with values for each one of the buildings at certificate of occupancy. Okay, so that's how we came up with the values going forward. So those values aren't going to change. The only value that does change in the dates horizontally is when we get certificate of occupancy. So at that point, that's when we start paying taxes. That makes sense.
So where are we in the 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11 Ferry Street?
So three and five are completed,
They're fully occupied?
fully occupied. 7, we're hoping we're either going to start this fall or spring. And then 11 is 2026, 2027.
And 9?
9 is the last building. That's the hydro plant, little retail operation.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be the final.
So are these dates then, I don't know who to ask, whoever wants to answer. So then based on when the certificate of occupancy comes for all those buildings, are we on track to meet this schedule? Because these might be a little delayed.
Yeah,
Just wondering.
Right, so the little box at the bottom was the values that were established back in 2019 that were agreed to by all the parties that were just mentioned. The developers team did go back in and make some adjustments based on the new timeline, which is reflected in the numbers.
So just so to make sure I understand this conceptually, because I did discuss this, but it was in,
Yeah,
like you mentioned,
it's a well and it's a
2018.
lot with the two different
a few things have happened.
components. at the same time.
Okay, so basically the idea with the DEF is that the developer, like the parcels within the development district that in this case are all parcels held by one developer,
Mhm.
in lieu of paying property tax, pay a separate tax to the city and to partially the state that then gets moved back to the city.
Yeah,
And then what? So that's already happening.
yes, that is already happening.
Okay.
correct. Like,
And
The buildings that are occupied.
right, and so as more buildings come online, that amount will increase. And then the idea is that what we are proposing here tonight is that $3 million, the city borrow $3 million and to do demolition, to fund the demolition of this parcel, but that the fund to pay back the borrowing will be from that funding stream.
Essentially, yes. So the nuance that I want to point out is that while we are taking in those pilot revenues now, they're not being captured and set aside into a separate fund for projects in the district. They're just going into the general fund. This allows the money from July 1st of 2025 moving forward to be put into that development program fund, which can pay back the debt on it.
Okay.
Or yes, I'm sorry, can pay back any borrow.
Dunham?
So we've been capturing funds and it's been going to the general fund. And I'm assuming that's been spent on general fund things. But now we're gonna capture that, put it in an account. It's gonna pay off this debt. But the money from previously that was not being captured, are we gonna end up being short at the end? And are we gonna have to come back to make up that difference?
So I'll let Hadel speak a little bit more to that. I think she can probably answer it a bit better. What we've been capturing is pretty negligible.
Okay.
And it's only, so, what have we got in it versus that and where it's going. If you can answer that better than I can.
So on the general ledger side, general fund revenue, there's two separate lines created, one for 121A pilot agreement and another one is state 121A. The original agreement, which has the exhibit, the collection is not matching with that exhibit. So there are some discrepancies, which is internally, we have to figure out what's going on. As of right now, if everything is like actual based, or I follow the agreement which was signed back in 2021 for Exhibit A, we should have collected $286,000, $948.96. But as of right now, on my books, I show $192,152.53. And we still haven't collected $94,796.43. So there is a variance, and we will find out what's happening and what happened, because there are a lot of transition took place in the positions. So we're still trying to understand where the variance is going. Every year when there was every year when we were receiving the payment from the developer, it was going into general fund. State, it was going to the general fund. And at the end of the fiscal year, it closed to free cash. And it's been doing every time the following year, June 30th, free cash gets recertified. That year's revenue gets involved into the free cash. So if we get to the point where we resolve all of these issues, what needs to happen is once the free cash is certified for this year, we're going to take that dollar amount, which has been closing to free cash, and we'll put it towards this special reserve for debt account. If the collection from July 1st to July 1st, 2025 is supposed to go towards this project only, then we do not need to take that step.
So just to make sure I understand,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of stuff going on here. So if I'm just restating a lot of stuff people are saying, and I'm just trying to make sure I have all the facts straight. These funds we have been receiving so far, but they're not going to any line item in the budget because there isn't one. So it's just been revenue that's been coming in and closing to free cash. So once these funds are, if we create this development program fund, then the funds will close to that account instead of free cash. So the free cash number will be slightly lower, and instead the funds will be in this account, but it won't have any impact on like the budget process.
It will, because what has been happening is 121A pilot agreement
Mhm.
is part of the revenue estimate. So then we are taking currently, yes.
In the future.
In future, I can't. As once this is in place, I won't use that money to project the revenue. But 2026 budget, that is part of this, the whole budget projection for the revenue side. The other issue which we are still trying to figure out, I've been talking with external auditors, Brooke, our treasurer, has been talking with our financial advisor to figure out how it's going to line up, because the exhibit, which is part of this contract, is incremental basis. When we go and borrow, it's going to be set principal amount and set interest amount. Yes, after 5 or 6 years, however, we will get to the point where it's going to offset it. But where the technical issue we are experiencing right now is, let's say the first year we have to pay towards the borrowing $200,000, and as per this exhibit, we only get $100,000. Where we're going to get that other $100,000? Are we charging it to the taxpayer? If yes, then 5 years from now, are we going to refund to the taxpayer and say, it's your reimbursement for the taxation, which we should have not charged, or we charge it in anticipation to take care of this project?
I don't
There are
love
some-
that right off the top of
No,
my
I
head.
don't want that.
Just, I don't
So
love
far.
it.
No, it's
Let's
not.
not. Can we do something
No.
other than that?
So we've been, so I do have an idea. I haven't confirmed this with external auditors. I talked with him, and Tom Junior, is our external auditor, he's gonna get back to me. I talked with Jeff from Scanlon's Associate. They're gonna get back to me by Friday, so I might have some kind of answer. I am thinking just upfront. So once the exhibit is finalized and we know what borrowing, no, there's one more piece to this. So borrowing wise, our financial advisor, I'm speaking on behalf of our treasurer, what I am we both learned is borrowing standpoint of view, diff borrowing, if we go for diff, there is a higher cost attached to do the evaluation and or from financial standpoint of view. That's an additional cost. And there are more stricter rules for borrowing for a city under diff program. So what our financial advisor is advising us is to borrow under grant anticipation note on the front end, and back end, it will be supported with the diff agreement, which can be done also. So with all of those two pieces together, back to the same thing is if we are paying 200,000 and the revenue is not there, 100,000 is the deficit for that fund, which cannot happen. And being the grant anticipation note, it will become part of our budget. Granted that the funding source would be this DIF program or the fund. That 100,000, what I was talking with Mayor about this is what if we find the dollar amount where this increment will match with our borrowing schedule, and see if we can upfront put it at a capital stabilization and with the return agreement with the city stating that when it catches up between fund and the borrowing schedule, that whatever the appropriation comes out to the capital stabilization gets put back to the capital stabilization. So we can meet both, we can balance it. I mean, it's an idea at this point. I do not have confirmation if I can practically do this or what are going to be the other issues, but I'm gathering more information.
Just expand on a little bit.
Before you expand.
Contract.
Oh, yeah, we can track a bit. No, just one question for Hadel, do you have a timeline for when you think you'll understand whether or not that's possible?
Every time I turn around, I'm learning something new about this.
Okay.
So,
but
I will
because
try
these are
my
questions
best.
we're gonna have if we have a public hearing on
Yes.
this. So I just want to make sure that by the time we're doing that, we have you're talking to probably the three people on the council who are going to be handling this level of math the best. And so there's 6 others who are great in their own ways, but do you see what I'm saying? Where I just want to make sure that we have this a little bit nailed down before we make that broader pitch.
So as I said, I did talk with external auditor this afternoon. He did say that, Jeff did say that he's going to talk with Tom either tomorrow or day after. And I'm really hoping that he gets back to me and, everything is clear for me. And I've been keeping Mayor posted with all the communications I'm having with them. Yes.
The second version of your solution that you don't know if you can do yet. Is that one that does not implicate anything new to the taxpayers?
Yes, that's what,
Good.
yes,
That's goodness,
yes,
because the first option was badness.
absolutely.
Okay, so if you can get an affirmative answer that whatever you just described, and I will need a diagram, will not have any negative impact on the taxpayers. It will,
That is
it's
whole-
basically accounting. at that
Yes,
point. Moving money from one account to the other, but no impact to the taxpayer.
going back to the taxpayer with the second option. On the other side, me and Brooke, our treasurer, is also talking about, what's that? As needed borrowing, so the authorization has been awarded by the city council.
We only take what you need. when you
Yes,
need it.
as we need it. So if right
That one
now,
Better too.
yeah, so we are not borrowing upfront $3 million, paying for interest when if I understood and captured everything correctly from yesterday's meeting with developers group and us, I think it's gonna be somewhere 5 to 8 months that the feasibility study and the designing phase and everything is gonna take place. So if we have that much time, then why borrow 3 million now?
Right.
Because we can
We're
save
just
that
accruing,
interest.
yeah.
And if the first payment is $250,000, and we have that cash flow available, no need to borrow on that. Take that 3 million minus 250 and then rest borrow. So she's gonna talk with the financial advisor on as needed borrowing too, or if we, I mean, we're
Is that
still,
something you'll know by Friday as well, or is that a longer term answer?
it might be by end of next week.
I personally don't feel comfortable voting on this with a lot of, I don't know.
I think that it would make sense to have this conversation. We're not meeting again as a council until
That's true.
September. So I think that maybe what would make sense is to have this conversation, get all our questions answered, figure where we are, and then
Reconvene.
maybe reconvene towards the end of August to just touch base. But I want to have this conversation now.
Sure.
Yeah, I saw Councilor Denham had a hand, and then
I just wanted to say to the councilors real quick, I met with our city treasurer late this afternoon. She wanted to offer her regrets. She had a previous engagement scheduled for this evening. Any questions that you may have that either I or Hadel, as members of the financial team, can't answer for you, feel free to reach out directly to the treasurer.
thank you.
Special obligation bonds, in my conversations with treasurer, there are many, many hoops to jump through when you do a special obligation bond. And that's why our financial analyst, our financial advisor is recommending that we do a general obligation bond with, again, the TIF agreement in the background to support that borrowing and the resulting principal and interest payments.
Can you just differentiate what?
The special obligation bond would be following the exact.
The full amount. The 3 million.
Special obligation bond is the bond that would be outside of responsibilities for the taxpayer.
Okay.
You know, it's a special obligation bond, meaning it would be directly tied to the 121A agreement.
Okay, I want to come back to that in a second.
But in this case, I mean, it's important to know this. The city is going to get a more competitive interest rate if it does a general obligation bond.
Yeah.
There are going to be all sorts of extra costs, extra hoops to jump through, as well as a timeline of about 6 to 8 months to do a special obligation bond.
Okay.
And that's why our financial analyst is saying, don't go that direction. You won't get a good interest rate. It'll take you longer to complete the borrowing. And you've got to hire, the costs are just way more than a general obligation bond.
Okay.
So that's why our financial analyst and the treasurer agrees that it should be a general obligation, a model that Hadel discussed with the diff at the back of this, but still funding all of the debt service for this $3 million bond.
Councilor Jeff, you've had a question for a while.
It's not really a question. It's really in line with Councilor Coniff's kind of point, not feeling comfortable. I also just want to remind that we're in a deficit, and it makes me a little bit nervous. So money should have been coming in, and it was going to general fund, and so I just want to make sure that this isn't in any way going to contribute to or add to.
I can just jump in.
That.
Yep. The way this is written right now, it would only be money that was supposed to be paid from July 1st of 25 forward that would be removed.
Okay.
So anything that we received in the past that was in free cash would stay there. We're not like taking out of that. That probably doesn't change the projected revenue for FY26 that was in the budget, but it doesn't, it's less than the 200 whatever.
I just
we discussed.
Great. I just want to acknowledge that. I'm just naming it.
So just to recap what I've heard so far. And then we can get more information, but I feel like I just need to keep coming back to this. I hope this doesn't get frustrating. The idea of the diff is generally that there's a district. Parcels are privately held rather than the standard taxation approach the city has. They pay a payment in lieu of taxes. That would go to a fund that we would be establishing. That fund would pay for the principal and interest on debt that we would incur to fund certain projects. The idea of why we would do this on a private land is that it would be helpful in speeding up development on that land, and which ultimately brings the city more revenue. So that's the general pitch there.
It is public improvements, but we have.
Those
we
are
have
public.
easements over all of this, so it'll be like public parking and,
Sure,
yeah.
but the demolition though is that
It's
public?
it's technically a public improvement because we have the easement and it'll be public, once where the building is will become public
I
parking.
see. I see. Great. Okay. Okay. So thank you for that correction. Okay. And so that these are public improvements that are on this, and that the public improvements are funded by this pilot payments. And what the finance team is generally suggesting is that the borrowing we do itself be a general obligation bond, and that if the revenue from the pilot is not initially enough, and that they try and pick up the bond for what they need at the time, and if that isn't enough, then rather than the taxpayers incurring it, we would do an appropriation out of capital stabilization to fund the difference, and then these funds would then pay back any funds that came out of capital stabilization. Do I understand that?
I think you've
Wow,
kind of encapsulated that just about right.
I'm not worthy.
ChatGPT could have done it.
I want to make clear, the idea with the diff is that if not for this, none of this development realistically would happen.
Right.
Okay.
Like it's the sort of the key to unlocking all of this private investment.
This
And as well as all the public funds that the city have been involved with investing into this area since 2019, starting with the $3.9 million Mass Works grant, the $4.4 million Housing Works grant we've received to assist Home City Housing, which is partnering with Mike to develop affordable housing on the site.
I just interject one thing, so not to get up on my soapbox on this, but all of these buildings, we're talking over $108 million, for the city. So from 3, 5, 7, 11, 9, it's a lot of money.
So it's a lot of money, a lot of private investment leveraged for this public investment in 11 Ferry Street, as well as the new city neighborhood.
So, and what I was gonna say is, Allison said this is the key, and I was gonna say this is a pretty important piece of a puzzle. And that puzzle is, all of these things that we're talking about here. So we're talking about new housing, we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about public infrastructure improvements, we're talking about money that we've captured from grants from the state, from the federal government. Like, this is such a mosaic of funding sources, and it's such an important, which is why we're trying to figure out how we can make this happen. I mean, the good news is we're only talking about $3 million, right? This isn't $100 million. So if we were looking at borrowing a ridiculous amount of money, that would be really cause for concern potentially, even with such an important project. But, a $3 million investment city side in order to leverage everything that we're going to be able to leverage, and this would be a city project. So we would, because we're spending the money, we would have some operational control. Obviously, it would be a partnership, but we'd be working with the developer. But I do think that, from this side, which is really interesting.
Just saying.
This is such a critical moment. And that's why we're working so hard to figure out how we can make this work in a way that we don't, cause taxes, put this on the tax rolls, and that we can be creative about finding ways to make this. Because remember, that money's there. It's coming. It's fixed. We know that money is coming back to us. It's just maneuvering things a little bit so we get things to line up. Because it's there, and that money will get funded. That money will be paid back.
The 121A payments and the pilot payments, they are there. They are going to be arriving here in our coffers.
And the more stuff gets developed, the bigger those payments are. Okay, I've got a couple more questions. Does anyone have any? Okay. My first question, what's our current capital stabilization balance handle?
I do not have that number because books are not closed, sorry.
Well, if you had to guess. I won't be mad if you're wrong. I'm just like here, like how,
Can I email it to you?
yeah, I'm just like, is it more than 3 million?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, cool. That's, fine. That's good enough for me for now. But yeah, if you could email that to me,
Yes, I
that'd be
will.
great. Then my second question, okay, so I think we have a basic idea. I feel like I understand basically how this works. And if everything that Hadel's suggesting, in fact, is fine and allowable, then I'm probably comfortable with it. I guess the next question I would have is, could you guys share a little bit of information about what is this $3 million demolition project? That, like, what is the scope of this? What does this entail? What's getting demolished and what's getting built there? That's, I think, the next thing.
Sure. Here we go.
Mike, why don't you
We
point?
don't need to see the blocking out the mayor.
Okay, I'm used to it.
He's a short time, but it's fine.
So again, thank you, Mike. Mike, thank you. Thank you very much. So, again, this was previous from the beginning. Obviously, you know what's been done. Building 3 is completed, building 5 is completed. This building has been demolished. Building 7, which we should be starting, we have the approved finance package, private finance package for this. This should start either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. The problem is by starting this building without demolishing this boiler room building, we have major safety hazards with masons on staging in the canal area. If anything falls from this building, we have a significant problem. 11 Ferry, which we were just funded by the Healy administration 2 weeks ago. That's going to be north of $50 million. We'll also be right in this area here in the middle. Actually, if you spin it around, Mike, please.
And that's affordable, right?
That's going to be affordable. Yep, just like that. Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is where the boiler room building was in this picture. And here's the new building here. So what's going to ultimately probably happen is those buildings will either overlap or almost be simultaneously built. So that's the game plan. We can't obviously start this building unless the boiler room building is down. So it's critical that this comes down to really do both these buildings. And then to take it a step further, just for your information, all of this area here, with the exception of the building footprint of these 2 buildings and this building, have reciprocal easement agreements on them. Okay, so it's all pretty much considered city land.
Okay. And the idea is that this we are
Thanks, Mike.
borrowing for, and that the subsequent projects included in this package, we're hoping we can pay for out of the pilot funds. And so this will be the one that we're anticipating borrowing for right now. Okay.
Yeah, so the borrowing would be paid back by the pilot. We still also have the Department of Revenue payments that aren't included in, or in addition to this 3 million pilot. So
Okay.
in total, the expected revenue over 25 years is 7 million.
I see.
Almost. 6.8 million.
So what you're seeing there is about half of the projected total revenue.
Okay.
So what, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so what will 3 million cost against the 7 million coming in? 3 million won't end up being 3 million. It'll end up being
Yeah.
something plus interest.
Right, we don't have that
It'd be
yet.
5 million.
Yeah,
ultimately.
it really depends on how the borrowing.
Borrowing goes.
Yeah, so it's not 7 minus 3, it's 7 minus something bigger than 3.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why we're, aggressively looking at a regular obligation bond as opposed to a special obligation bond, because one thing that didn't get mentioned about the special obligation bond is a much higher level of scrutiny that needs, like a consultant would have to come in and look at our finances, and that we would have to pay for that. So it's just another level of.
Yeah, there's several levels of review, and internal review and external review. Financial analysts have to come in and look at our cash flow. They have to do projections years out. Basically,
That doesn't
25
sound
years out.
I think we can all look at it.
It gets very expensive,
Yeah.
is what our
It's not
financial
$100
analyst
million.
has told the treasurer.
Yeah.
And this is where the treasurer says, fine, we'll do general obligation backed up by a TIF, by the 121A or the DIF agreement that will cover the debt.
Okay. I think I have all the information that I need for now. The only piece of information that I still need is just for Hadel to confirm that this plan actually works. Is there anything?
It all comes down to you. I'm working, trust me, everything I found out, I'm like trying to put my.
I know, I am not doubting that you're working hard on it. I'm just saying that that is information you currently don't have. Once you have it, then I think I'll be comfortable taking a vote on this. So, unless there's any further questions from, or,
I have a technical question. I did not know who to ask this question, so I'm gonna ask it to everybody. Sure. This authorization is a authorization for financial team to have a green light when time comes to borrow. I'm being very hopeful and positive. What City of Easthampton financial, cash flow, not financial, cash flow is good and we do not need to borrow. Our obligation is to pay the bill. Am I understanding that correctly? If we don't have enough cash flow, then we borrow and make sure that the payments are processed. The ultimate goal is that up to $3 million, we will pay the bills. Am I understanding this correctly?
As needed.
I would say
As
yes.
needed, right?
We can pay as you go also.
And that
The
potentially, that
revenues coming in.
strategy could potentially save us more money.
Yes.
So that's something that we're gonna be aggressive at looking at as we figure out our cash flow.
okay. That
Tom,
makes,
can I ask 2 questions?
sure, why not?
Okay.
But then I think after, we're probably gonna, I don't think I have any more questions, but sure, why not?
First of all, brilliant. I think all of this is brilliant, and I think I've followed it pretty well, and I'm impressed with everybody's planning. Can we put the documents that have been shared online for the Ferry Street project so that we can look at it? I haven't seen them yet.
I don't know if it was attached to the agenda or not.
It's in the agenda.
They should be, I think they're on the agenda. If you want to do a little bit of digging, they should be on the agenda for the July 9th meeting.
The finance committee meeting.
No, the city council meeting, because that's when they were all
Yeah,
submitted.
these are
Thank you.
slightly revised as of today, so I can pop them up on the planning website too.
That would probably be awesome. That way they're current.
You can see the revised package on the planning department website.
That's generally where I go,
Probably in
look
72
at the
hours.
Ferry Street stuff, so
Probably by
thank you.
Monday, they'll be up there.
Can we just confirm the number of units for each building? Because it's hard to find on the stuff that's on the planning board, that's all.
I think some of it's still a little up in the air, right?
Building
Roughly.
7 is 77 units.
Okay,
Building 11 is 96.
and 3 and 5?
3 is mixed use. There's 2 residential and multiple commercial tenants. Building 5 is 40.
Perfect, thank you.
Good memory.
All right, eat, sleep, and breathe. Ferry Street, right, Mike?
It's the existing buildings aren't included in here, but what would become of this is in the packet.
So Tom, are you just gonna continue this?
I would
to
just,
later?
that would be my preference.
And I would just say, I have my head wrapped around this pretty well right now.
Okay.
So yeah, and so if we can try to stay on track for September 3rd, any questions you all have, feel free to reach out to me as much as you need to, because
Yes.
I feel like I actually have pretty good understanding of this.
What I will do, here's the commitment I'll make. Once Hadel contacts me, I will set and says, we're good to go, or, hey, we need more time. Once Hadel says we're good to go, we know exactly what we're planning to do. I'll reach out to my colleagues and we'll schedule, and to you, and we'll schedule another meeting of this committee. So if you said that it could be the end of next week, then that's, then we could do that for then.
Perfect.
So that's where,
27. Wait, that's a Wednesday. Yeah, 27.
yeah, it could be there, something
Or
like
the
that.
20th or the 27th.
20th, 27th, something like that. So,
Okay.
I think let's shoot for the 27th. I think makes a lot of sense to me.
So my hope would be that meeting, assuming if things go well, to discuss how to approach this with the larger city council, because obviously the dialogue we had tonight is a lot. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk.
We're
about
just
it.
have the
Conversation we
mayor
need to have
explain
now,
it.
but
I would be happy to. I
It's
got
all,
the-
it's all falling to you now. It's
No,
great.
yeah, absolutely.
Our acting mayor and apparently our mayor over here.
Yeah. I think that it's not like, I think that it's really not that complicated once you, there's just right now, there's a few branching paths. I think that once we figured out this is exactly what we're going to do, it really isn't that complicated. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, general obligation bond, covered by, several revenues that are coming in from
Yeah.
the 121A. and the
Capital
pilot.
stabilization if something goes wrong. Yeah, that makes enough sense to me. All right, I would entertain a motion to continue this item to our,
We don't have to.
or we just continue it. Yeah.
We just don't
All
vote.
right, yep, we're just continuing it.
How that
Stand
works.
corrected.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks,
Will.
everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mike, thank you.
Bye, guys. I got surgery on it last week, so it's one more week in this than I thought.
Oh.
Yeah, I might have staff for it.
Hey, Salem, can you stick around for a
That
minute?
seems fun.
We have like 3 other items.
No, it is not.
I wish I could say more. I got a 1-year-old at home, so I'm not a deprivation.
You get real good one-handed. Have a good night.
thank you.
Okay,
Living up to my capabilities.
all right. So we have 3 more items that I want to touch on. The first one is a $699,985 appropriation for Main Street reconstruction design funding from capital stabilization. Mayor, is there anything you'd like to, or actually, I think I have, do I still have
I think Greg is
Greg
still on
on
there.
there? Yeah, Greg, would you like to speak to this?
Might need to run back.
I sure can if there's any questions. What this funding is going to do is continue our work on the redesign of Main Street and more rehabilitation than anything, to 100%, to get it ready for construction in 2028.
Well, can we just have a thumbnail of what, like, when you say it's a continuation of, what's, I don't want to go into specifics, but like at a high level, what are we talking about? Trees? I don't know what.
Okay, so there should have been a memo that went through with what I submitted that everyone should have from the agenda, but I can read it. Department of Public Works, we've contracted with the Bowman Group to redesign Main Street from Northampton to Park Street. This includes complete reconstruction of Main Street, replacement and upgrades to water and sewer utilities, redesign of the signalized intersection at Union and Main. And an anticipated total construction cost for this project is about $10.5 million, with $9 million of that cost coming from the Mass DOT Transportation Improvement Program.
All right.
I just ask for the public because they don't always have the document in front of them. So it's just always good to have it out there. Okay.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Nuttleman?
No, I like that the state paying for 90%.
Yeah.
Love that.
No, so I think this has been an ongoing conversation that the public has had the opportunity to be a part of. So it's, I appreciate Director Nuttleman's, continuing to move forward with this project and so we clearly need to do something with that. Right, so I'd support that.
Right. Well, then I would entertain a motion to recommend this appropriation request to the full council.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is an interdepartmental transfer request of $8,641.20 to fund the unfunded hours with the Veteran Service Principal Clerk position.
So what happened with this was there was a discrepancy with what was put into the budget. to the actual, I think she was working 20 hours and the 20 hours brought her to, there was a discrepancy. And so in order to bridge that discrepancy, we were able to use some of the money. Halo, correct me if I'm wrong. We entered into an agreement with Easthampton for our Veterans Service Agent is servicing Easthampton now. And so the money from that was able to bridge the gap. And so that's why we came to fully fund the position.
I see. Any questions, councilors?
Sorry, right?
Yeah, I can add one more thing real quick.
Sure.
The money which we are receiving from the Easthampton can not be put towards the budget because the budget is set by the city council before June 30th. That's a done deal. So that money is going to go as a revenue into our general fund. The increase, this also made, the budget was at different hours and at a different rate. When this individual was hired and the agreement took place, all these together made this person's position 40 hours benefited, and I think it was a one step higher. So that's where the difference is coming from. So what we are doing is at the end of the day, when June 30th, everything closes, it will be all net to pretty much close to zero, a very small amount with appropriation, because and funding source for this appropriation is coming from the cash benefit for the veterans account because they have some money in there. Normally it comes from the free cash, but we don't have the cash certified yet.
I see. Gentlemen?
Just to be clear, so when you say June 30th, you're talking about 2025 or
2026.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It will close. It's just that the municipal accounting, the revenues and expenditure walks parallel to each other throughout the fiscal year. It only closes at the end of the fiscal year. And I can't put the revenue into the budget because then the vote by the city council is not going to tie out with the budget.
So if this is coming out of the cash benefit, is the idea that then we would potentially, after free cash, if the cash benefit fund is in trouble, we would supplement it? Or?
If needed, and there are some projections. It's one of, I always feel like it's one of the sad department because they have that particular cash benefit. It also projects what if we lose life of a veteran and we have to pay for the funeral services, and if we don't have to do it, then that money is saved, which is a positive side. But you know, the projection also includes dental work, also includes if somebody passes away, there are benefits towards the funeral services. If we end up not using any of need to use those funds for those purposes, there is little cushion in there, and this amount can be covered. But if we end up using those funds for unforeseen situation, then there might be a appropriation request later in the fiscal year.
The Veterans Department feels okay that this will be sustainable.
By Tom Garrett.
Okay. Councilor Denham?
No, I just want to say I fully support this. I think that our veterans need as much support as we can offer them. So this additional time for this position, I think only makes that office more accessible to be able to address the needs of our veterans. So I support this.
All right. I don't have any further questions. Okay. I would entertain a motion to recommend this appropriation of the full council.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then we have one more item of old business or continuing business. Maybe.
You don't want to stay?
You're on a roll.
I've been here since 8:30.
I know. Look, it's one more thing.
Okay, fine. I did.
I might need some.
No, I'm just wondering.
It's the rescinding of borrowing authorizations for city space restoration and Honeywell Energy Conservation Project. Would you like to?
So that, I mean, this is before my tenure, but I do know that this was just money that, the energy conservation project fell through. It's money that didn't get used, so it's being captured.
Okay. And the city space restoration?
I don't. Unfortunately, Nicole didn't brief me on that one.
You don't do that?
Yes, I do. space, this one I'm not 100% sure, but it has to do with that, $3.2 million borrowing, which CPA end up supplementing
Mhm.
majority of it, and then there is another portion which CPA is gonna pick up. And we have an authorization on our books on the treasury side. Honeywell it's a little bit over $6 million authorization we have on books. And we only needed $1.4 million.
Mhm.
So rest is not needed. Why we are asking for rescinding this amount is when our evaluation for bond rating call goes to the bond raters, what they see is this outstanding amount as a liability for the city.
I see.
And it changes the equation because then they're saying like, you have a higher liability, why would we give it to you? So then if we don't need this money, it's a good idea to rescind the borrowing. So basically we are writing off liability from the books.
Yeah.
So we can borrow. We really need to borrow.
Exactly. No, that's great.
Okay.
But I don't have actual amounts on these, what is needed, but I do know that Honeywell, it was $6.3 million authorization, with a little bit of change, and we end up only borrowing 1.4, so rest needs to be rescinded. It can be, the full amount will be rescinded, but I'll look into the backup for next,
If you're gonna look into that, maybe let's continue this one as well, just so that we can make sure we have the figures and understand what's going on. Does that feel reasonable?
Yes.
Chris? Okay,
That way I can catch up on it.
and you can get out of here.
I could, yeah, but I would catch up on that to make sure,
Yes.
because those ones happened before I stepped in, so.
Okay. Well, that's our agenda, so, I
So hard
would
to give you all this
entertain
respect.
Shouldn't be.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Second. Hi, Mayor.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, for sticking around.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.